I'm so excited to have you here on the
Likewise.
Beyond Mind podcast. Nima Yani is here to join us. He's the founder of MyMentalPal, the app, and I'm so excited to have him share his story because it's so unique, but so relatable, and really comes from some topics that we cover on Beyond the Mind from just a different perspective and a different lens. So, Nima, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, appreciate it, SC, and excited for this podcast. I can start off with kind of giving a high-level introduction of my
Yes.
mental pal, and then we can go from there.
Yeah.
My mental pal is a mental training tool, and it's a way to learn through practice of meditation. And what we do is that we turn really great books like Atomic Habits, OSHA, Power of Habits, and all these really amazing books into meditation practices. And the goal is that, we see meditation as a place where you can learn and absorb information, and then you can take it throughout your day, basically. And that's kind of the goal that we have, is that if you can take control over your mind, then you can take control over your life.
I love that. And I know you and I got to chat a little bit earlier about your journey into mental health and mindfulness. And it comes from your upbringing and your journey to the US. Can you give us a little bit background on, I guess, your journey into mindfulness?
Yeah, I'll start off my journey into mindfulness. Would you like me to start with the journey of coming to US and then diving into
Yeah.
mindfulness? I
Yeah.
think
Tell
that
us
would
about
have a slightly
it.
better
Tell
connection
us.
with the story.
Yeah, I guess I'll split the context that I know your background has to do with performance, and coming
Hmm.
to mindfulness is tied to performance and a certain passion of yours that brought you to the
Yeah.
US. So I would love for our audience to be able to hear
Hmm.
your story.
Growing up, I was a lot into sports and athletic body contact activities, and basketball was my favorite sport, and I used to play it almost night and day growing up. And I did grow up in Iran as well. And I decided to move to US to be an athlete, and that was really my passion growing up, is to be a professional sports athlete. And when I moved here, I was, just me moving here. Faced a lot of challenges during the move to US, but during that phase of, practicing sports and everything, mental health was a major challenge of mine, as I was practicing multiple times a day. My body performance was increasing, but my mind performance was decreasing. And when I got into college, I started yoga. And then yoga, at the end of each class, we ended with meditation. And I found that meditation piece was the most powerful part of the whole session, was that stillness part. And in my world, where there's a lot of contact, stillness was the key factor to being a next level athlete in college. So that's when I transitioned into entrepreneurship and then starting my company. It was not originally My Mental Pal, but it then kind of transitioned into the My Mental Pal and being a mental training tool with meditation.
So I'm really fascinated with the fact that you knew yourself so well that you knew you wanted to play basketball and take
Yeah.
upon a big risk, like come to a different country to
Hmm.
invest in something that you were passionate about, especially growing up in a country where like that's not the traditional path, and uh,
Yeah.
I often find that it's a lot of us struggle with knowing what we want and have, but outside of what the systems around us want for us. So how do you think you know that so well? Like, do you think that that was an early connection to your body and how basketball felt, or where did that like knowing come from that this
Mhm.
path can be an option for you?
It started early on when well, I'm also an A grade student, so all my grades were always A's. I usually didn't have B's as much, so I was really good in education and
Okay.
studying and everything. I was very disciplined. I think that was my main key thing. My parents didn't usually force me to either work out or study or do anything. It was just basically me making a lot of decisions. So part of it is, making a lot of mistakes and then learning through the mistakes of how to do things right. And that builds discipline. And I really fell in love with basketball when you can make mistakes really quickly and then learn from them and then come back, in 5 minutes and do something better. So it's a basketball I see as a continuous self-growth sport that you can continuously grow throughout it and become better, either in your physical ability or your mental ability or your strategy. And it's really amazing how it kind of plays out in not just sports, but in real life mentality as well.
That is super fascinating. I didn't connect the dots until you just said something here, but
Mhm.
I want to ask because when I was learning about trauma work and I would say like interpersonal dynamics and
Mhm.
communication, and my coach Dennis, who I'm so appreciative, so I end up talking about him a lot on my podcast. But he was my communication coach, but he often referenced sports. I think he'd use baseball an analogy, but sports as how making like small, like sometimes very minute tweaks and like refinement can make all the difference in terms of the long-term strategy.
Yeah.
Um, can, can you dive a little bit more into that? I feel like you probably have a better sense of how that fits in with mental health. Because I actually never connected it to sports, but I refer to that analogy a lot, even though I don't
Mhm.
play sports, but I get it. I get that that's like the precision that sometimes you need to look at tackling something for like true impact.
Yeah.
And I guess just where the dots connect.
Yeah. All the sports have this thing in common where if you are able to make small tweaks, you either win the game or you win, if you make a lot of game winning decisions, then you win a championship. That translates into outside of being an athlete too, or outside of sports context. If you make a lot of good decisions outside of sports and relationship and school and life, then you end up being in a much better place in a year, in 5 years, and 10 years. All the small steps eventually add up to larger contexts. And the key difference in all of these decision making is not really your body, but it's your mind, and that's what separates a two athletes from one another. Is basically their minds are in a different place, even though one might be stronger or weaker. That mental ability is really what separates people from one another.
So discipline in particular.
Yeah, discipline. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Fascinating. So I'm curious, how did you use that discipline in learning to navigate change? Because as part of this path, I mean, that's remarkable that you had it like the flexibility to evaluate how
Hmm.
you're using discipline in your, like educational, more intellectual life. You said you're getting straight, good A's and B's, and I mean, great grades, right? So there was nothing wrong there. But then there was this connection to sports. I don't even know how to ask the question because it's such a foreign thing. Because a lot of us are stuck in our heads. Like we really, if we are intellectuals, we live up here. We tend to be like detached almost from like using
Hmm.
our bodies and understanding how they are like contributing to our performance. But you had a good view of both of them, it sounds like. And I'm curious, like, what does that feel like if something is driving you more towards like that physical aspect than the intellectual one? Like, how would you choose that? Because on paper, the intellectual route probably made more sense to anybody just on paper, on a path to follow.
Yeah, I do understand why take the physical, route where people are trying to make decisions with their bodies in a arena or sport than to make a intellectual career, right?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I should preface that I'm really making an assumption here,
Mhm.
just from what I know in like a country like India where I would just go visit. It's like if you are getting those grades on paper, the path that you take is almost like predestined, and you wouldn't even be considering a different
Mhm.
path in something like sports. It just seems like there's more of a social expectation on the table. And so
Mhm.
yeah, that's where I'm getting really interested of like you had a self knowing that there was something that was coming in more of this physical discipline that was a,
Mhm.
an investment. And I'm just curious what that you had words for it if you just knew it from experiencing both.
It's a lot to follow your gut feeling, but when you're younger, your decision makings are also your parents as well. So when you do have good grades, you have a lot more leadway with your parents. They know you're making good decisions, and know you're top student, you're good in sports, then they kind of allow you to make a decision what's best for you at that point. In the United States, schools were actually a lot easier coming here. In Iran, schools were challenging. We had a lot more curriculum, classes, and discipline in the school, I would say. US. In US, it was almost like I didn't have to study to get grades. It was very, very, I would say, easy, the curriculum that it was here. So I had a lot more time to focus on being an athlete and working out at 4 a.m., 7 a.m., 4 p.m., and then going to night and then thinking about sports and then waking up and doing it again. Then I went to school, but it was so easy that I just didn't have to spend time doing much of the work because I was just much more ahead of other students there. So I spend that time being the best athlete I could be.
Oh, this is fascinating. Okay, I'm getting it now. This is really
Mhm.
fascinating. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about how, yeah, just your mindset when you moved at a young age to a different country. And, it seems to me like you kind of, when a lot of Beyond the Mind focuses on what's invisible around us, because a lot of us, can see things like very pretty linearly, but sometimes often miss the invisible, like social intelligence, the moving between worlds, like the, physical and mental, like a lot of that stuff. But you seem to have had a more solid like footing in it. And you're knowing, I'm just kind of curious, how did you use that your thinking and your thought process when you were adapting to a new country and just kind of thinking long term while
Mhm.
trying to understand things like social dynamics that are confusing at any age, let alone in high school?
Yeah, I would say it was very challenging. The first actually for a few years in US was extremely challenging because there was a lot of no family, no nothing. New language. I spoke Farsi in Iran. In US, I speak English. New people. Initially, I had a lot of trust in people. And that trust level, because if I was in my own country, everyone I was interacting with were family. And we
Yeah.
had a lot of family circles. So coming here, that family circle was, non-existent, and I had that thought process that you could trust everyone like family, but you meet people and they oftentimes disappoint. So you learn to build, mental barriers. A lot of times, people that come to US, they do get into drugs or other problems because they tend to trust people as well. So because I was disciplined early on, I had my own discipline. I usually did not go to parties. I was not a party person at all. I was just, super focused on one thing: come here, be the best athlete, avoid everything else. So I had that mindset kind of, coming before coming to US. So my goals were already set. When I came here, it was just all about execution, and anything that did not align with it, I was just kind of, avoiding all the parties, drugs, everything else that was deterring from the main goal that, I set out to accomplish.
Oh my gosh, so impressive. I don't know if you know this, but there's a meme about ADHDers, and I
Mhm.
think you might, because I know we've talked before about how a lot of folks with ADHD really resonate with your app and find a lot of benefit with it, that you already have a lot of users with ADHD and done research in that area. But I just
Mhm.
know how I've connected with your app, that there's an ADHD connection. And we struggle with discipline so much. This meme says, like, uh, it's funny that you think you can tell me what to do. Like, I can't even tell me what to do. I can't even stick with the plan that I make for myself, because there's this internal rebelliousness, against,
Mhm.
I mean, it's against your own discipline, even that you want for yourself, right? So it's, I should say, somebody investing in learning discipline now, it's quite challenging, but quite beneficial. And so I, I love that you came to it from such a like holistic knowing,
Mhm.
and like applying that and understanding like how that was impacting your physical performance versus your mental performance.
Mhm.
Like it's very strategic and like targeted. Like you are you were you like developed yourself thinking about performance. And so now I'm better understanding how this has fed into development of my mental pal. So I would love to dive a little bit more into that if that
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Um,
That sounds good. And do you want to touch base on the ADHD part? Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to, with people that do have ADHD, it's hard to tell, from an app perspective, hey, do this, do that, do this. We solve that actually. Instead of us telling, for example, someone what to do, when someone downloads our app, we ask them, what do you want to do? And here's the options that you have. And then we'll just remind you every day that you have to, these are the things that you committed to doing, basically. It's basically that you make the decision and the commitment and the roadmap to select. We just keep you accountable on it.
Thank you for that. I'm actually going to ask you the question from a different angle now, because companies that build products struggle with thinking about the customer and how they're approaching the product. And you just showed how you thought about a customer mindset that is radically different than the way that you would naturally build. So clearly, you've built a product that has deep customer research like done in mind. You know the problem space as a founder, but you didn't build it for you. How did you know to do that? In your
Mhm.
how did you, because and I ask it because I was a product manager for my previous tenure in tech, and so this is a big challenge of when you're building is getting really clear on who you're building for, knowing that they are not you, right? And really understanding them and their needs. And a lot of companies really struggle with this aspect alone.
Mhm.
So as somebody who didn't come from tech and didn't work off of a framework, how did you know to do that? Like, how
I'll
did you know that people
yeah.
were different than you, that their needs were like early enough?
I'll first, touch base on what's already out there
Yeah.
for other people. So there's Calm app and Headspace. Calm, you download the app and it doesn't give you any direction, what to do, where to start, what's your roadmap. It's basically a library of content. But they have really nice content, but there's no plan for someone to do anything or any kind of reward for doing something. So that immediately that's the biggest player in the market. Calm app. That just leaves a huge gap for someone like us to now think more deeper from a customer perspective. I myself was a coach too and a trainer. And I worked one on one with a lot of people that I helped them with their physical training, health, and nutrition. So I have that experience of working one on one close with people and
Okay.
understanding what they need and what they don't need. And basically, our our product and our service, as someone comes on board, it's basically we have a mascot called Zen, and Zen starts off being your coach. And Zen asks you a lot of questions. Hey, where do you want to focus? What's your goal? Based off your focus and growth areas, here is the books that we recommend, the book meditations. And then you select the books that you like, and then that becomes your roadmap. And we educate more on what's the benefits of doing this, why you should do it, and we'll remind you as well to come back and practice.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So you really thought about like individual needs and then how to make them more scalable,
Yeah.
by allowing preferences
You
and
take one-on-one relationships and turn it into a product, and how can you scale it to now millions of users basically. And that's through our mascot Zen, which acts as a coach as you come into the app to coach you every day and practice with you and nudge you and celebrate also your wins too. So if you practice every day, Zen would celebrate your accomplishments of 7-day streaks, 30-day practices, or 100 days.
we'll just swap that third topic to the second to third since
Sounds good.
yeah, I find like your design and research approach behind My Mental Pal to be really fascinating and really important for the time that we're in because like your background tells me you clearly have invested in understanding the brain and body connection, and obviously given your background and what you shared with me, like performance and how those play together for better performance is top of mind. And we have industries that don't understand that individual needs do differ around this, and so the need to meet somebody where they are but also provide options for growth, it's a really critical and part of like any app that I would say definitely touches on mental health, right? Because there's a lot of sensitivity about how you move somebody forward to help them make progress in an area where, I mean, just like physical injury, you don't want to get injured in the progress. And with mental health, you don't want to cause burnout or overexertion or like misunderstanding of a skill that creates more harm. So
Hmm.
the thoughtfulness that I think I'd like to dive into that thoughtfulness a little bit more because you talked about just understanding that each person is individual. But can you tell me a little bit more about like the broader types of research that you've done? Because I know you've done research on neurodiversities. Um, and that's what I'd like to understand more because I don't think that the thoughtfulness behind those user needs are I mean the question the concern behind the question is that right now when we're able to do software development really fast in an age of AI, it's really easy to develop first and then launch and almost skip the most critical step, which is the non-tech parts, right? So it's the understanding of the user's needs and then thinking thoughtfully through the design on behalf of them to protect them and how they grow, as a customer, and that like customer first mindset throughout the whole process is a huge risk in a time of AI where development and launch is so quick and easy. So yeah, I'd love to invest more into like the research that you've done in that like upfront thought process and why that's so important when you think about like brain and body and like optimizing it, for
Mhm.
holistic health and improvement.
I'll circle back on what you said, launch early. I'm really for that actually. Launch early, see what works, fail quick, and iterate fast. And that's what we've been doing for a long time. We did launch we've been launching, versions that do not support initially from our, early versions. They were not as polished, they were not as thought through, and the customer will always tell us that we're wrong. Yeah, so I would say the research is continuous. It doesn't happen that you have to spend time on just researching and then launching a product. Then you lose that gap that you can launch something. Uh, as we're researching and we're building at the same time, we launch versions every month. We're iterating constantly for the last 3 years, and we've done so much, try and fail, trial and fail, not just on the development side, but also on the content quality, the teachers, the steps that a user has before class, after a class. So we've thought about every step of the customer journey, including the content, which is the most important thing. We've spent years just finding and making strategic partnerships with mindfulness teachers
Okay.
and psychologists to teach these content. And that's where we think AI doesn't play in, actually. We believe AI should not teach the content of the classes because it requires a lot of creativity. And I believe creativity should not be taught by the AI to humans. Humans should, create that part of it and teach it to other humans. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was like, yes, it's a lot of creativity. I say that because when I did my yoga teacher training and understood the complexity that it takes to teach even a single yoga class or a single meditation, it is a lot of like designing a full experience that is like invisible.
Yeah.
So like so important. Go further into that. Like what were you finding like from feedback to like knowing you had to invest more into like the full experience?
hmm Initially, we were just a meditation app like Calm, but changed our positioning, and we are a mental training platform.
Okay.
And we train through meditation. That's one of the tools we use to train the mind is meditation. And to build a mental training platform, it's basically the same as physical training. It requires daily practice. It requires daily reminder. It requires, what happens if you miss a day, and it's a continuous, practice. You see results in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, in your, mental training progress. It's not a platform where you come in and take a class for anxiety or stress or sleep. We're all about training the mind to become smarter, wiser, and growing that personal development. So that requires a lot of knowledge in what goes into the actual content of each class and who teaches them. And it would be just super easy to grab a script off of ChatGPT and plug it in AI and just make hundreds
Right.
of classes. And it could probably do the job, but it would not have that edge and creativity and imperfection that's needed in a class. AI will give you a super perfect script, but it won't give you that creative touch that a human has.
Yeah.
And that's where that handoff from human to human happens the best. And the content that we create, they all start off with a lot of education. Instead of a meditation class that starts off with, hey, let's breathe in and relax, it starts off with, teaching you. And since we are a book-based meditation, which we call also micro-learning meditation, basically micro-learning meditation is learning big ideas in a short period of time. And that's how we create all our content is in a meditation class on our platform. You learn about the concepts of really great books. For example, taking Atomic Habits, each book is divided into 7 days. Each day you come and practice one day. And we talk about one topic each of those 7 days. And it starts off more like an audiobook and then transition into meditation. And then you learn and meditate and you take it into your real life. It's basically the gap between a book and actual, real life executions, kind of the
Yeah.
meditation part that you kind of need to now that you meditated on it, you're excited. Now go and execute, go practice habit stacking now.
Yeah, your app is really unique that way. The book that I'm listening to now, I think Becoming Superhuman by Joe Dispenza. Like when I was listening to the meditation, and they're only 15-minute meditation, so amazingly doable, like in the morning.
Yeah.
And I think that flow feeds into just what we were talking about, like the thoughtfulness of like getting somebody to learn it and then put it into action quickly. Because it seemed just like that. Like it started off with like an audiobook or like a book, like a book deep dive on a topic,
Like an audiobook basically. And you first, you need education on the topic and the
Yeah.
concept, right? And then you meditate on it, and then you reflect. The teacher guides you through that whole process, and you learn. And then our teachers give you one key takeaway that you can have into your real life. And that's basically our micro learning concept, that you can meditate on great concepts and practice it then in your real life.
I'd love to dive into that part because as you're learning these concepts, especially because you come from a performance background, and I don't like I'm always thinking from your. I wonder if I came from if I came from more of like a balanced background, would I see meditation as like the first little touch point of mind and body like talking together for just like building a connection, like step one before you could go to like mastering performance in like both your, physical performance in life and your, I don't know, maybe like more tactical goals. So can you help me like
Mhm.
understand, I guess if we're starting this today with My Mental Pal, and like I know in terms of discipline, a lot of us struggle with like an imbalance of where we're disciplined. Like we might be really disciplined in our, work, but not as disciplined at home or not as disciplined in our fitness routine.
Mm.
So I'd love to talk about like kind of, yeah, what does that user journey like look like for you, is like being able to use My Mental Pal as the like a foundational tool, like daily tool to enhance performance more holistically in your life.
Mhm. Yeah. So number one thing is to make the tool super accessible and make it easy to get into your class. So you don't want any kind of barriers to start a class or any kind of blocker. So we make it super easy to, start a class every day. All our content are 15 minutes. You know how much time you're expecting to put in. That
Mhm.
expectation creates habit. And we set daily reminders. A member gets multiple reminders a day if you don't practice.
Okay.
Your emails will come, everywhere, where we can, to get that one class a day from you, so that you're on top of that training. And then touching on the mind and body connection, that's a foundation of all meditation practice. All meditations have a mind. Basically, a meditation is a practice of the mind to connect to the body.
Mhm.
Now, how much more can we add to a meditation becomes the education side. That becomes us, teaching in a meditation class. And all our teachers and all our classes help with that mind and body connection. That core practice is what we also teach. And our teachers have done a really great job with doing that. And they all have backgrounds, and they're all mental health specialists, mindfulness coaches. Some of them have career coaches. They've been in stressful jobs. They have those experience hands on what people face and their challenges. So they know how to guide a person in a class that's either struggling with something or is coming here for a challenge that they've been facing. They know how to get someone paying attention in a class, basically.
I love the statement you made earlier where it's like a handoff from human to human.
Hmm.
And I'm having a hard time asking a question, but I'll tell you what I'm experiencing is like since learning that your teachers are like actual teachers that do have like extensive experience and background and have been interviewed extensively before becoming teachers on your platform, I know in the experience it helps me better listen to the meditations as like a student, rather than listening to it as a meditation, as just a guided meditation to help me get out of a busy mind and invitation. So that to me is like, okay, this is the difference of what it feels like for me using my mental pal versus Calm. Uh,
Hmm.
it does feel more like a invitation to learn more mindfully, and put things into practice. And so, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know the question that I'm asking. It's almost like how did you know that that was such a critical step for the effectiveness, or how have you guys been able to measure the effectiveness that that has? Because I imagine it's significant, but like when I first, uh, for many of us who are so loud in our heads,
Hmm.
it takes a long time to even just get to that skill to mindfully listen well. So I guess, yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more into like why that part was so important, and especially like that seems to me like something that's really irreplaceable in the time of AI, right? Bring that connection there. So if you could speak to that a little, that'd be great.
Yeah. So the closest platform that comes to having content that's done by other people than the teacher is Calm. Calm app, their classes are they're well, they don't really have teachers. They're all actors and actresses reading scripts made by other people, basically. So they have the biggest disconnection between actual mindfulness and actual meditation. And we saw that as also a huge gap in the market where great teachers do not have either the platform or the voice to talk about their mindfulness practice or teach it. So that's one thing that we really took into account when we started interviewing teachers is, seeing how well they can teach and seeing their own struggles as well. And we provide teachers structures to create a class, but we don't create the classes. The teacher does. They have the best experience. We give them guardrails and feedback, but eventually the class is theirs to teach. And no other app does it the way we do. And we spend a lot of time on the content side, making sure each class is pitch perfect, teaching content, practicing mindfulness on the book's concepts, and then having one clear takeaway. We can't measure how successful it is compared to, let's say, an AI class because we just don't have AI content, but we have people that love the content,
Right.
and that just gives the right signal that we're doing the right things. If people are coming in and practicing and coming back the next day, that means that we've done our job with creating something that's truly amazing.
It's wonderful. And how did you know that understanding trauma was an important part of the experience? I know even in the yoga and meditation world, there's say like subject matter expertise can be built just in trauma. And so I guess how did you know that that part was important to bring in for the users benefit?
Yeah, and that's a really great topic. Trauma plays a really direct, almost direct connection with mindfulness and overcoming trauma.
Mhm.
And everybody faces trauma on different levels, including myself, trauma of either loneliness, trauma of grief, trauma of different areas in life. People have different amounts of trauma that they have. And knowing that myself as an athlete, as a trainer, working with people, trauma is usually the one of the biggest blockers to creating new habits because you're basically holding on to something else. So the sooner someone can let go of something, they can grab something else. So our thought process in building the product is how soon can we have someone disconnect from something so that we can give them something more valuable in their future or current present they can hold on to more. The platform design, make the design as beautiful as possible, make it most fun so that someone wants to come back every day and practice. And then the teachers, we have trauma specialists, we have teachers that have been through challenges and they understand it. So as soon as the content can be effective, then we've done the job of helping someone release problems from their past and taking control of their present and future.
I mean, to me, coming from uh, the tech industry where this like level of knowledge about like the human needs, usually they kind of live in two separate worlds, right? So I find it this so important and fascinating that here you've built a tech product that really understands this human element. because I'm not sure if everyone knows, like I had to learn this going through my own yoga teacher training, but the work that you're talking about, I mean, these are like, uh, I have my 200-hour and my 300-hour, trainings, but the work on how to communicate to be trauma informed, um, not just the words you say, but how much you guide somebody versus invite somebody. Like there's such like detailed thoughtfulness that goes into creating a safe like practice. I mean, and the effectiveness of it comes to allow like yourself to have that vulnerable like space and exposure, and then to have the space to work through it. But I guess I want to call out how unique this is, because even when you're doing something that's trauma informed, it does take this level of thoughtfulness, like a yoga class that is just, maybe I would say a yoga class without thinking about trauma. I know I took a class that I was loving, and then there was a song that played, and it was a song that had this theme of school violence. For it's like with any parent that's in a yoga class and then a song comes on about school violence, like I was so triggered when it came on, because I was so in the moment and I was so listening to the words. It had a really like a negative, like a jarring effect, and so that's just a simple example of like how, when you don't understand the needs behind like trauma and the impact of the mind and body to create a safe space and to enable forward progress, it can impact your experience without you ever knowing why. And so that's where I just see this amazing benefit to your users at a time when, uh, without understanding these nuanced things, that I don't think AI is ever going to be able to understand it, because to understand trauma and how it affects you, you have to teach each individual to understand it in themselves, right? So AI will never be able to craft that specific class for you, but like what your platform does is teach it in a way that many people can benefit from it. And I love how you called out, it's like, it's conscious of not bringing in past, so that you can really, or it's more of like removing the barriers from the past, as you said it, right? To help
Mhm.
them forward quicker.
Yeah, and we have categories on that content, and that's basically, we've created a lot of content just for boundaries, trauma, and this whole category. We have categories on, let's say, productivity and self-growth, and other ones which is less trauma related. But our relationship category, we have relationship with self, which we have books that dive into more of these topics. And two of the books that we have are Set Boundaries and Find Peace by, forgot the author's name, Nedra.
Oh, yeah, to what? Oh, that book is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, we have that one, and this is a 7-day practice. So it's not like you come and just take it and now you go out and you're done. So we try to hold the member for 7 days to finish this. So it creates a more of a habit cycle of it. So that creates a lot of back and forth with us and the member, that we come back tomorrow, we'll teach you one more thing about this book. Come back the next day, learn one more thing. So we don't cram all the book into one practice. Another book which is great, Adult Children of Immature Parents by
Yeah.
Lindsay. Yeah, that one is also another book that we have, which talks about relationships, with family, self, and boundaries. And these two are taught by a psychologist and on our platform, which she's done a really great job. Her name is Jordan, with teaching these concepts from the book. And that really helps members, find ways that they can either set boundaries, find their trauma, let go, and connect with their present and focus on the future that's coming, which is amazing.
I I love it. And I had told you offline that in my short recap of after using your app, the first thing I said to a friend who's a fellow book lover is, "Oh my gosh, this book is like meditation for, or this app is like meditation for book lovers." It's
Mhm.
the joy of getting on there and seeing like a library of books to choose from. So the question that I know would come up, um, us book lovers, as it's already come up with me, is when we're in the app and we're like, oh my gosh, I want a meditation on this book. Like, how can we send you our requests for what books we think are amazing to consider for, focus work?
That is a good feedback. It's a good thought. We should add this area in our app to send us your favorite book requests. But the most common way is in our settings page,
Okay.
an option, feedback to CEO, which sends me a direct email. I get a lot of requests from people about books they like to see as meditations. So we often see a lot of requests from different books. One was A Man's Search for Meaning, which is the most common one we're getting recently, and we're working on that one.
Oh, I love, oh, that's cool. I haven't read the book, so I'll look forward to it. I would love to know, like, you started My Mental Pal, or you started your journey into meditation
Hmm.
because you had gotten to this point where you realized you were doing really well and disciplined with your physical performance and then wanted to work on your mental performance. And I'm curious what that journey like evolved into as you like worked on your mental skills. Like how did they uh how do you as somebody who has had balance like been able to like keep the balance iterating between mind and body? Because many of us, and I can speak for myself included, it's like no mind, you've worked on yourself for like decades. Let's now focus on body for it's like been big chunks of them being separate and learning to incorporate more of a healthy balance between the two.
Hmm.
So if you found that the relationship has changed in just your investment in more of like the mental training aspects of this work.
Well, to to get balance, you must first lose balance. So I've also invested time in being off balance. So I've invested time in doom scrolling or doing things I personally wouldn't want to do so that I know how it is. So I have a different perspective of it. That gives me a mindfulness view of now this perspective is different. I also work with, I worked as a trainer, so I talk to a lot of people, and I have kind of direct communication how people feel when they are in different situations, different mindsets, different relationships. That just helps give a holistic view of all multiple views and making the best decisions of making a product that is impactful. But talking on the journey between the sports and building the product, basically in college, as my career in athletics and sports came to a close, I was also an entrepreneur. I was also the a cum laude of my class, the top student. Yeah, and I honestly I didn't put too much effort into it. I was just doing it. I was just I don't know, maybe I'm smarter. I don't know, but school wasn't challenging that much for
Yeah.
me. As I was an athlete, I was studying entrepreneurship, and then I got introduced to yoga, and meditation was a big piece of it, and I used it every day before I was practicing my sports athletes and getting into training sessions or after training sessions. That meditation piece was a huge game changer for me, and it made my performance increase a lot. And diving into it more, I started with building the first version myself, and then started building team. And then building a team had challenges, took years to build a solid core group of people that are amazing. And that kind of led into building my mental pal from a group of amazing team members and meeting amazing coaches that teach the classes as well. And then now we're just in the last phase of now working with influencers in the same space and communicating our product to the world.
I'm glad we're kind of closing on that team element because people behind the product is going to be even more so critical, obviously, in the future, right? I think when we are able to have like mass development, the thought behind it and the ability, like you said, even without it being an upfront investment, like being able to iterate with improving things, not just for like revenue potential, but for like true impact is going to be more like so important in the next or the current chapter moving forward of AI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would love to know like what are the best ways for our audience to be able to like try out My Mental Pal and connect with just understanding what you're building and more about your team, connecting with the teachers. Like what are the best social media platforms and what's up ahead, so our team can try out or our audience can try out your app and also connect more with My Mental Pal and what you're building.
I'll first, give a huge thank you to if my team ever watches this a huge thank you to my team because they're the most amazing core group of people that I've met, and they're all incredibly talented. It is challenging to build a product like this, and you meet people and they often leave the team because they don't see the vision or they don't have the work ethic. So the early on challenges of building a team is very hard. I would say it's the most hardest part of building any company. First, you need to have a vision of the product, what you want to build, and you need to find people that join you on that vision, and you need to find the right people to join you, and that becomes really critical. Moving past all of that, then it's working with teachers, and we spent a lot of time just finding these incredible teachers that we have on our platform. I've worked one-on-one with all of them to create the content, just to make everything pitch perfect. And then lastly is where you could find these teachers on our platform or their social media. All of them have a profile on our app. So if you go to their profile, we built a description about them. There's links to their profiles you could go follow. Some of them even, actually most of them even offer one-on-one coaching. If you
Oh, that's
ever
cool.
enjoy the content of these teachers, then you could just go and take a one-on-one lesson with them if you prefer as well. And lastly, how to get started. All you have to do is just download MyMentalPal and we'll take care of the rest. And our onboarding will work with you and in a few quick questions, find what your goals are, your favorite books, build a roadmap, give you a plan that you can start your first day. And hopefully it's a long, amazing journey.
Oh, I love that. Well, I gotta say, I've been using my mental pal for about a month now, and I've really been enjoying it. I've really been enjoying it a lot. And there's some books that I had never gotten to. I think the first one there was Eckhart Tolle, and I know I like his work, but I just didn't connect with the audiobook that I had tried earlier. So I enjoyed getting a little bit of a preview through my mental pal of like the topic and the theory away from like his actual book. Because I think it did help put it back on the like for later shelf, So I'm loving the experience, and I'm so excited for our audience to be able to try it and to have gotten a chance to get to know you. So thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting with you more and being able to share more of like my experience using my mental pal.
Thank you, Esty, and it's very nice to be on your podcast, and I'm hoping it will reach a lot of people and help a lot of people.
Awesome.